I believe it was the manager, Lou, from Major League, who once said, if you can't make him see the light, you got to make him feel the heat. That's what we're trying to do on the Alive and Social Network.
What do you got going on there?
I'm tangled up in cords. Completely tangled up in cords.
If you're going to offer a quote, will you please explain the quote?
Well,
I really don't know what that
hang
means.
on. Got cocaine eyes. That's my favorite line from the song. Because I no longer have cocaine eyes.
Well, we all need our muse. We all need our inspiration. And all Mick Jagger had to do was just look to his left, and he saw cocaine eyes. It's pretty easy.
Or into the mirror from
or
time
right.
to time.
He can look either right or left.
But the quote from I think it's I always attribute it to Lou from Major League, the manager.
Let's go with it.
That if you can't make him see the light and make him feel the heat, that's because that's what we're trying to do here. I couldn't get a job in radio, so we're trying to just go out there and do more downloads and listens than they do at stations, which we're doing. So that's,
congratulations on that.
Thank you very much. We don't even mean to toot our own horn, but that's what we mean by if you can't make them see the light, you make them feel the heat. This is the Jeff Dubay podcast, and this is the show that sometime during the course of podcasts being downloaded and listened to, that we will have our 25,000th listen. So thank you very much to everybody who's been a part of it, who's listened, downloaded, supported.
Sure, it's not one person who listened 25,000 times.
We'll take it. My number's a number. I'll take it. But I mean, it's when you think about it, it's kind of cool. I was talking to Eric Forsberg yesterday, the owner here for Devil's Advocate, and the fact that I mentioned Devil's Advocate 4 or 5 times a show means his show's been mentioned 100,000 times for a very reasonable fee. So it's an advertising bargain, if you ask me. But we got other things to get to. The voice you hear besides mine so far is Jim Souhan, who we are more than happy to invite and just welcome into the Alive and Social Network. Jim is going to start his own podcast. Do you know what your schedule is yet?
No idea. We're meeting about it tomorrow. I hope it's as soon as possible.
Yeah, I mean, you give a guy like Jim carte blanche. I mean, you're a Renaissance man. I mean, you're somebody who
Well, I've stayed at a
freedom.
Renaissance at least.
Well, yeah. I mean, you do like freedom. I mean, the ability to do whatever you want. I mean, you're a musician. You're not limited to sports, although you do obviously have a knowledge base there. You and I are going to do a show together, which I guess would be sports-centric. If not, I mean, we can venture. I mean, you don't always
dabble.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe a little home interior talk as well.
But I mean, that's unlikely. But since I don't really design,
I can do my whole home interior show for you right now in the next 5 seconds.
Do it.
Hire somebody else.
All right.
Do it someone else,
Yeah.
or do it someone else. I'm proud there's another one of me out there. But you just mentioned like you might do a show where we're doing live music because you're a member of a band, the Media Jackals.
Yeah, or might change the name. The new name might be Bar Chords.
The bar what?
Bar Chords.
Bar what?
Chords.
Bar chords. Okay.
Chords.
Okay. Cool.
Musical chord.
Okay, I get it.
Right.
I get it. That's not bad. Also on the show, as always, Jason McGovern, sidekick, producer, contributor, host of the Minnesota Pubecast, heard twice a week. You will be on the air live tomorrow from Burger Mo's?
Tomorrow after you guys on Wild Wednesday.
I shouldn't say live. It's a podcast. We're all podcasts.
Well, but we are there.
Yes.
And we are recording it live.
Yes.
So technically live. So
Yes.
yeah, there tomorrow tonight after you guys, after Wild Wednesday. You guys are 5 to 6. We are after that. And we'll be talking Pointergate and other things, Adrian Peterson probably too. And then Thursday at O'Gara's, 5 to 6.
Yeah, and we're going to get to Adrian Peterson. We're going to talk some Vikings, maybe a little Gopher football. But also joining us is Tony Anderson. And Tony, you are a local basketball scouting service. I mean, you're kind of I don't know if you know who Henry Lake is, but you're kind of a poor man's Henry Lake. Making your niche as a local basketball insider. You got your finger on the pulse of the recruiting scene. You've seen some sleazy, underhanded stuff in the world of AAU. We got a little touch of expose to the show today, maybe, but we're going to talk some inside hoops, local hoops with you, Tony Anderson. And tell folks where your website. You have a website, I assume?
Yes, I do. It's www.northernexposurepreps.com.
Northernexposurepreps.com. How long have you been doing it?
This will actually be my second year with the website. I've been an independent and national scout for about the last 5 or 6 seasons.
That's awesome. How'd you get started in something like that?
Basically, just going around from tournament to tournament and different varsity games throughout the season. I started off with just a notebook and pen, taking notes, breaking down players, and then when I was able to kind of catch up technology-wise, I put it together with a program as far as like a scouting service now online.
Nice. We'll get into it more deeply as the show progresses. Right now, quick 60-second break. Okay, last year, 2013, I lived just down the road, Pleasant Avenue, just a few blocks here from Uptown Pond, which is right on the corner of Lake and Pleasant. And, there are a couple of times, you just try to get to that next payday, maybe a couple of bucks short. If you've got some items, jewelry, diamonds, electronics, I mean, you come down here and they give you a fair price for it, and then you come back a week later, 2 weeks later, whatever, you get it back at a real reasonable price.
So we're very competitive, we hope, on different angles, in different ends and different articles. Computers, electronics, TVs, jewelry. We buy, we give loans, and we also have emphasis on diamond jewelry too, that we also try and give credit for the best we can. We're specialists in that area also, so it's an all-round sort of combination.
Well, it's a great place. It's a nice, clean place with honest people, and I tell you what, it's got a real family feel to it. As a matter of fact, it's tied into the Strauss family, and I go way back with the late, great Jerry. So, I mean, these are people I know and people I trust. You can find them on Twitter, too, by the way. They're at Uptown Pond, and also on Facebook, Uptown Pond, and UptownPond.net. And for the folks out there who enjoy the podcast, we definitely appreciate your patronage when it comes to helping out our sponsors. The folks here at Devil's Advocate do a phenomenal job. We've been here since day one. 40 craft beers on tap. The menu's phenomenal. I had a taco salad today that I can still taste it. It was so good. I mean, it was a serious taco salad. And then I had cake balls. Yeah, have you had the cake balls yet?
How were they?
Oh my God,
were they amazing?
I still have a semi. They're so good.
Have a semi.
Yeah, I mean, and they're there were 3 balls. You get them $2 a piece, or it was 2 for $2 or 3 for $5. And I'm just not secure enough to order 2 balls, so I got 3 for $5. I got 3 for, and that was damn worth every penny. So anyway, back on point. We'd love it if folks spend $1 or $2 with our sponsors, Devil's Advocate, with their fantastic menu, Uptown Pond. You just heard some words from my friends, right on the corner of Lake and Pleasant, just 3 blocks from where I used to live. And they're just good, honest people, and it's affiliated with the Strauss family, and I go way back with the late great Jerry Strauss, who's very much missed by many, including yours truly, who still has to fight a parking ticket on his own now. God damn it! Not a parking ticket; it's actually a moving violation. So it's more serious than I'd like to think. But anyway, I digress. Let's get out of my problems and let's talk about Adrian Peterson's, because Jim, it sounds like he's got a hearing. The sticking point here is, the league wants him to give up information that he doesn't have to give up, that the court has sealed. It's because it involves a minor. I mean, dare I say, how dare the NFL insist on getting these files? Because they've got no right to them.
Well, let's go big picture here. The NFL has had the choice all along how to deal with player infractions.
Yes.
Professional sports league, you're going to have them. You're going to have them in any business.
Right.
But professional sports league, young men, prone to violence.
Yes.
With lots of discretionary income. A lot of things can go wrong there.
Absolutely.
So they always kind of went case by case before. Then Roger Goodell came in and basically said,
on a horse.
With a tin badge, saying, I'm going to be the sheriff, I'm going to discipline people, started punishing people for jaywalking, for DUIs, for everything. He could have said, you know what, I want our players to behave well, but it's really not my jurisdiction. I don't really have power in that area. Tell you what, if they're out of jail, if they're released on their recognizance, whatever, they can play. We're just going to let the legal system handle all of our legal problems.
Yep.
He didn't do that. He said, I want to hold our players to a higher standard. As soon as you do, and I don't necessarily disagree with that,
right?
But as soon as you do that, then how do you, if you're trying to hold your players to a higher standard, and if you just completely screwed up the Ray Rice thing and made yourself look like a complete buffoon,
yes,
how do you not try to discipline Adrian Peterson at this point in time?
Well, how about how do you weigh in the fact that he's missed half a season? I know he's gotten paid for it, but you know athletes as well as I do. What hits a guy like Adrian Peterson is taking away his ability to play. I mean, not hitting him in the wallet. Well, hitting him in the wallet. So people who think, well, he hasn't really been punished. He's been getting paid. He's been getting punished. But when there's really no precedent for something like this, I think equating punishment to crime, not crime, in the criminal sense, but punishment to action. I think equating one to the other is very difficult. It's a hard thing to quantify.
Well, if you're trying to operate as if this is a fair world, then you're right. Yeah. Because you can argue that Goodell way overpunished people who smoked pot or took recreational drugs. And it is amazing. If you look at the statistics, I saw some today. It's like, I think 88% of NFL players who've been convicted of a violent crime or domestic abuse have had suspensions of 1 game or fewer, and 80-some% of NFL players who have been convicted of some drug-related problem have gotten 3, 4, 6 game suspension.
The league knows what Randy Moss does with marijuana.
There ain't no fairness here.
No.
And
You're right.
so everything is judged in its own context. And what you have here is a commissioner try to be the big tough guy.
Yep.
When he actually had a chance to prove that he was a tough guy, completely blew it with Ray
Yes,
Rice.
the one time.
Underpunished him,
Yeah.
and now is trying to set the agenda anew. So it's not about fairness that he's trying to punish Adrian Peterson further.
Right.
It's about him setting a new precedent that he can use going forward.
And it's been clear from the very beginning, and not to paint Adrian Peterson as a victim here. He did something wrong. But the timing of it, he couldn't have orchestrated this any worse. To come in on the heels of Ray Rice gets you automatically grouped in with Ray Rice by the public in an offense that is completely different. I think, really? Ray Rice is an animal who wanted to hurt a woman. This is a guy who wanted to punish a child, and he lacks parenting skills. I think that
to me, they're both. If they're to be grouped, it's two guys who completely lost control. You can't tell me that Adrian Peterson wanted to discipline his child, ends up beating him bloody all over his back, ends up hitting him in the genitalia, ends up leaving defense wounds on his hands because the kid was trying to just not get beaten anymore. Very different situations.
That is a more graphic explanation.
Very different situations, but the common denominator is two very powerful men use their power against people who could not defend themselves.
Isn't intent a difference there, though, too? And especially since Ray Rice tried to cover it up. I think that the character of the person, even though they both committed evil crimes and physical crimes, I think that the character behind it is different. I think that Adrian Peterson, you can go, maybe he has a problem with parenting skills, whereas Ray Rice hits women. They're not exactly equal.
I get that. I'm not even.
I guess I'm not saying.
I'm not saying they are equal. I'm saying that, and I'm not saying they should be grouped together. I'm saying that the way this happened and the fact that Goodell screwed up the Ray Rice punishment so badly, and while looking corrupt, as either corrupt or incompetent while doing it, he has no choice but to, if he wants to continue as commissioner, and if he ever wants to discipline anybody else again, he has no choice but to try to reset his agenda with Adrian.
So what happens?
I think he's going to keep dragging his feet as long as he can. I think he's going to drag the hearing out as long as he can. I think he's going to keep dragging it out as long as he can, hoping that one of two things happens. Either the Wilfs come out and say, well, we're already eliminated from playoff consideration. Why would we bring Adrian Peterson back, lose sponsors so we can play in meaningless games? Or, and this is my conspiracy theory, he keeps on holding out and asking for things he shouldn't be asking for until the NFLPA sues him, and he says, privately, he says, this is perfect. I took the strong stand. I showed that I wanted to stand up to a star player, and if the NFLPA sues us and forces Adrian back on the field, I just throw my hands up in the air. I did what I could.
I would think that would come sooner rather than later.
But I don't think he cares.
Okay.
I don't think he cares. I think the only people who really care about the timing, besides Adrian Peterson, are the Wilfs. Because if he is cleared soon, then the Wilfs have to say, on the one hand, I have my best player, my highest paid player, and we're playing meaningful games. How do I hold him out? On the other hand, if I bring him back, I'm having CNN roast me 24 hours a day. I'm having people scream at me at a press conference, and I might lose sponsorships.
So what do you think happens in the offseason?
I think the offseason's easier. They were already, if Adrian Peterson had no legal problems and had played great this year, they're still looking at a 30-year-old running back by season's end, or off-season, who is making $14 million a year, which is a ridiculous number in the modern NFL. Nobody pays a running back that anymore. They were already going to be asking him to take a pay cut, and maybe hoping that he'd say no so they get rid of him. You just don't pay running backs $14 million a year anymore.
So he's done here. Is that what you're saying?
I'm not saying 100%. I'm saying that's the way I read it.
Okay. But we're gonna talk more Vikings, more football, Gophers, and such throughout the show. But I want to get into some hoops with our friend Tony Anderson. Again, the website one more time: northernexposurepreps.com.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Now you're somebody who follows scouting. You're somebody who follows high school talent. Let's start with the kid at De La Salle that's coming to the U. Tell me about him.
I really like Jarvis. I've had the chance to see him probably.
Jarvis Johnson.
Jarvis Johnson. I've had a chance to see him probably 10 to 15 times over the last year and a half. He's a kid that comes from a great tutelage. De La Salle has a great program. He actually defers a lot on that team because he had Reed Travis on his team last year. It'll be interesting to see how he handles his role this year as the go-to guy. But there's also a couple other Division I guards that play in that backcourt with him. So
It's a loaded squad. Then.
It's a loaded squad. He's kind of a combo guard. Patino has another kid right now named Nate Mason. That's a freshman. They're very similar. I'd say if Jarvis can actually play the one exclusively, that'll bode well for him in the future. But right now he's kind of caught in between positions.
How tall is he?
He's about 6'1", but he's explosive. I'd say he's probably has somewhere between like a 6'6" wingspan and maybe 35 to 40 inch vertical. I don't know exactly, but he's a very explosive athlete.
Sounds like a poor man's Bobby Jackson kind of. Just kind of a combo, kind of a physical specimen. Not a real big guy. That just because of the height, you think would have to play the point.
At his height, I think he has to play the point guard at the next level. I know before.
In the Big Ten, I don't think you can play off at 6'1", 6'2".
Yeah.
I don't think he can.
I think there's always the exception. There's always the exception.
If he's a freak,
who can do it. Yeah.
So,
how is Patino viewed by high school coaches?
He's very smart. Although AA program directors and most of the coaches that I talk to, they think he's very smart and wise beyond his years. For a young coach, X and O's wise, he's one of the best in the game. He's a little bit hard to approach, I guess.
Really? That surprises me.
His dad, I've met his dad too, and his dad's very friendly. He's very outgoing, funny. The younger, he's the new guy in the game, but he knows his stuff. He knows his stuff, and he's actually really well respected by the players. And being able to connect with that younger generation actually is a bonus for him as far as recruiting is concerned.
Who else is out there right now besides Jarvis Johnson? Who are we looking at the next wave?
As far as like Minnesota or Wisconsin?
Yeah, both. I mean, but specifically, I guess more in Minnesota and guys that we got a shot at.
Well, one of his backcourt mates, a kid by the name of Sakara, he plays at De La Salle. He's kind of caught in between that mid-range, high-low major, but I think that he's a kid that if we let him slip, he'll go to another school and end up actually. He's a kid that you'll hear from 3-4 years from now at a smaller school that makes a lot of noise. There's a big kid out of Maple Grove by the name of Reed Nico, who's actually a junior this year. He's a kid that you need to keep on your radar. Highly skilled, very well tutelage, great GPA. A kid that his best basketball is definitely in the future, and he's 6'9" and still growing. There's definitely a lot of mid-major prospects as far as the state's concerned. The high major guys are guys like Amir Coffey out of Hopkins, Gary Trent Jr. out of Apple Valley. Those are the kids that are getting attention from all the major programs right now.
Gary Trent Jr. He's not related.
Yeah, it's his son. Yeah,
really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I didn't know he'd settled in this area.
He's the next big name as far as Minnesota high school basketball is concerned. The way he handles himself, very sound individual. This year, because he played with Tyus Jones the last year. This year, Apple Valley is going to be his team, and it'll be interesting to see what he does in that role.
What is the AAU world like? I started my career covering high school sports in Fort Worth and Dallas. I covered Larry Johnson when he was just a kid. And back then, the high school team was much more important than the AAU team, unless you were like one of the ultra blue chips. For most guys, AAU was just kind of a way to stay in shape and play some hoops. Where's the balance now? Is AAU more important than high school, and is AAU is it as corrupt as everybody says it is, basically? I know, I put a lot on your plate. Just take your time, go where you want.
No, I agree with. From what I see, there's definitely been a shift in the guard. The AAU, because the AAU program directors and coaches have a closer niche to the actual college coaches nowadays. They have the say as far as the recruiting goes. So there's definitely a power shift as far as when I graduated high school in '99. The varsity coaches had everything as far to do as recruiting was concerned. AAU was a second notch. So I think that, yeah, it definitely goes through them. And where you see the issues with power and things like that, it all comes from the shoe companies because that's where the money comes from nowadays. You know what I mean? And that just stems down the line. So, yeah, you see a lot of, I don't know. There's different politics in the AAU program compared to the varsity scene, definitely.
So what is allowed under NCAA guidelines? I mean, you can't go and pay off a high school coach to get a kid. Can you go pay off an AAU coach to get a kid? I mean, what's allowed?
I mean, obviously you can't do either, but there's things that go on
right.
in the world of sports.
And does the money come from schools or from shoe companies? Or both? Booster shoe companies. Where's it coming from?
A little bit of both, I would say. You know, for the most part, you see a lot right now with the AAU programs. You see a lot of these kids, if you look into it, a lot of kids from the same AAU programs are committing to the same schools. I mean, Arizona has like 3 or 4 kids that are all from the same AAU program in Oakland. So I don't know as far as what kind of dicey business goes on, but I definitely know that there's a connection between those AAU coaches and the college coaches.
That's I don't even know where to go. I don't want you to get yourself in deep. But
No.
I mean, have you ever seen anything firsthand? I mean, like that's decidedly. I don't mean illegal by law, but illegal by NCAA rules.
I've heard of things, and obviously, I mean, I played college football myself, so across sports, and not just basketball alone, but it happens. I haven't really seen anything myself. I know that I get things as far as just like social media and on Twitter and just like personal contacts. Parents are pretty much willing to do whatever they can do for the kids to have a chance to go to college, and it gets pretty cutthroat, you know.
How much is it hurting the game? Because I hear college coaches talk about AAU kids come out with a lot of one-on-one. They play AAU, they play for themselves, and they come out, not knowing a team game.
I don't necessarily think it hurts the game. For one thing, I can vouch that the AAU has given kids opportunity to play against the best. So as far as the competition and what's available for them to travel around the country and get exposure, it's definitely increased in the last 20 years. The problem is the kids are getting a little bit spoiled with the shoe companies and everybody in social media. You don't want a kid to tell a kid that's 14 that he's the best thing in the world and roll with that chip on his shoulder. So I think this generation of athletes are a little bit more spoiled than what you saw like in the 80s and the 90s, definitely. But, the fact that there's big money behind the business has a lot to do with it.
I also think that while this generation might be more spoiled, they also might be a lot more savvy and sometimes much more able to handle the demands of the public. It's like I have friends in local PR for professional sports teams. They say, 10, 15 years ago, you'd ask an athlete to do an interview, be like, why? Why would I ever do an interview? Why would I bother? Why are you letting these newspaper guys bother me? And now they'll go up to a young player and say, hey, can you do this interview? And it'll be like, oh, is it ESPN or is it local? Is it national? They know, they get it. They grew up watching interviews on ESPN. They grew up watching interviews. They grew up watching their favorite stars in multiple commercials. They get the connection. They get that there's a way to sell yourself publicly that can benefit you. So it's probably a double-edged sword. There's probably some good things that come from all this exposure too.
Oh yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about that. Now, you mentioned Trent. You mentioned Jarvis Johnson. Who are some of the kids that we've been missing out on? Who are some of the kids that are? I mean, we saw the Grand Rapids kid sign with Wisconsin. I mean, who else are we missing out on?
As far as the 2015 class, I think if we're just talking like Gophers and Big Ten basketball, Jarvis and Alex are the 2 kids that I would say are definitely major conference players. Outside of that, like I said before, we have a ton of guys that kind of fall into that mid-major range, the Northern Iowas, the Southern Illinois of the world, things like that. But as far as high majors, those 2 for this year's senior class are the guys that I see.
So there's not another big 3 on the horizon like we saw last year?
No, I really like the 2017 class, so the kids that are sophomores right now. Okay. And then the 2018 class below that. The younger kids are really we have some up-and-coming talent coming in.
Well, you're digging deep. You go down and you do watch, don't you?
Well, you have to, yeah, absolutely.
Is that what year's Trent?
Trent is a sophomore this year.
So he's a 17.
Yeah.
And is he 17? Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a kid that you guys, we're kind of getting off here, but 2020, his name's Jalen Suggs, one of the top players in the country. He's actually going to be playing varsity this year for Minnehaha Academy, I believe, as a 7th grader.
As a 7th grader?
Are you kidding me?
I believe so.
I'll be dead by the time he's playing college.
I mean, that reminds me of Damon Bailey. I remember that's the youngest kid I ever heard of getting recruited.
And let's hope he has a better career than Damon Bailey.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, I hope he gets a nicer coach.
Yeah, that too.
Hey, Dad, thanks a lot for stopping, Tony. I really appreciate it. Take care of your back, man.
Appreciate it.
Well,
Thank you guys.
I should let people know, too, Tony works here at Devil's Advocate, so he knows the scene. Hey, just come back in here for a second. Let's do a little Devil's Advocate pimp here for a second, because you 10 bar here, and I mean, this is a beer drinker's dream, this place is. I mean, you got 40 craft beers on tap.
Yes.
It's awesome.
And if you want to bring me a beer right now to test that beer,
Yes.
I'm okay
I'm
with
actually going to do that for you.
What are you drinking, by the way?
Let's make a recommendation, Jim. Like, what kind of beer do you like? You like something heavy, something light, a lager?
I had some kind of an amber last time I was here with you, and I can't remember what it was called, but it had some like colonial type name. It was good, though.
Oh, boy. What does that do for you? Is that enough of a hint for you, Tony?
I'm going to get this guy a Devil's Advocate, our house brew. That's what I'm drinking right now.
Okay. I will try that.
Sounds good, man.
Thanks, Tony.
Appreciate
Appreciate
it.
it.
Thanks,
for
Tony.
having me.
We'll like to have you on again throughout the year if you don't mind.
Oh, sounds great.
Thanks, man. And it's Northern Exposure Preps.
Preps.com.
There's Northern Exposure Preps or Northern Exposure
NorthernExposurePreps.com.
Thank you. I had to butcher your. Well, I did butcher it. Well, get the hell.
I already got it on my home screen.
Go get Jim a beer. Thanks, Tony. Man, it's awesome.
Thank you, Tony.
Tony Anderson, Northern Exposure. Northern
Exposure
Northern
Preps.com. Northern Exposure.
I want to sneak
Preps.com.
hoops in for some reason. Yeah, let's get back to talk a little Vikings. I mean, the NFL's weird. I mean, we know that there's a few teams at the top that are better than everybody, and everybody else is just kind of bunched together, and there's not much difference between them. But when I look back at that game against the Rams, I mean, the Vikings went on the road and won by 4 touchdowns. And I don't care who you're playing. A 4-touchdown win on the road in the NFL is a rare thing. St. Louis is not nearly as hapless as they appeared to be that day, despite the fact that they're down to a third-string quarterback or whatever the hell it was, some guy I'd never even heard of. I mean, I like to play the what-if game. When this season started, I honestly thought this team had the potential to maybe win 9 games for a playoff spot. Maybe just.
Yeah, I was in the ballpark. I thought 8. Tony.
Yeah, but I mean, they really.
And they still do have a chance to win 8.
And they do. But I mean, it makes me wonder. It had they not. And again, I don't think Bridgewater's been a disaster by any stretch. But had they been able to stay with a veteran quarterback, had they been able to have Adrian Peterson, if the line wouldn't have had a bunch of injuries and been the disaster that it's been. I mean,
I really think the biggest X factor because
Matt Khalil sucks too, by the way.
yes, he does. Now, Adrian, they've missed Adrian. There's no question about it.
Yeah.
They haven't missed Adrian's raw production as much as they've missed the advantage you gain as a coach. I used to have this conversation with Dungy all the time when he was here. The advantage you gain as a coach when you have a player the other team has to game plan for.
Sure.
Because it's just it puts you up in the chess match. You know they have to game plan for Adrian Peterson.
Mm-hmm.
You know what'll be open because of that. McKinnon's averaged 5 yards a rush.
Yeah, they're 8th in the league in rushing yards.
Yeah, Asiata has been very good in goal line and situations.
Yeah.
So, and they've probably been better pass blocking without Adrian than they would be with him.
Sure.
So they've missed the strategic advantage. They haven't missed that much in production.
No.
I think the biggest difference in this offense has been this offense was really designed for Kyle Rudolph to be their number 1 receiver.
Yeah.
And I think that's damaged them.
Sure.
They have gotten, they've had a few decent games from tight ends, but Kyle Rudolph was going to shred defenses. And
he'll be back this week.
And, I know, and he was going to make up for the fact they don't really have a deep threat. He was going to be the deep threat. He was going to make up for the fact that Cordell Patterson doesn't really know how to run routes.
Tremendous red zone option.
He was going to be the number 1 option in the passing game. I think his loss is more important. His loss and the offensive line not playing as well as expected are the 2 biggest variables that have gone against them.
Are we reaching a point where I'm not saying you release Matt Khalil, but are we getting to a point where we're just going to say he is what he is? We're waiting for him to snap out of it, it seems like, all the time. Do we ever get to a point where we're just like, boy, we were just wrong. He's not that guy.
You got to, first of all, I don't think there's anybody else on the roster who would be markedly better,
No.
believe it or not.
Oh, no, I know.
Second of all, you have so much. I mean, what was he? I can't remember now. 3rd or 4th pick in the draft, whatever he ended up being after they traded down.
Yeah. He seems small.
You can't miss on that high a pick. It's people spend most of their time complaining about draft misses on quarterbacks in the first round, and that's because the potential impact. But everybody misses on first-round quarterbacks. Everybody, unless you're drafting an Andrew Luck. Thank you, Tony.
Tony's
Appreciate
back
it.
with the beers. Tony's the man.
Unless you're drafting first,
You rule, Tony.
and Andrew Luck or John Elway or Peyton Manning is available, there's just no way you're going to miss. Everybody misses.
Yes.
Because it's
Correct.
Where you can't miss is when you draft a left tackle that high.
Yeah.
He's got to be a guy who's good for you for 10 years. So they're going to give him every benefit of the doubt. They're going to give him as long as they possibly can to turn it. And then here's the other factor. It wasn't a mirage. He was really good as a rookie.
Yes, he was.
Well, and he wasn't a reach, right? I mean, everybody
No,
said
not at all.
Khalil's that pick, and it was across the board, national, local, everybody.
They made the right pick.
Yes, I wanted Blackman. I was wrong about that.
And he played right, and he played great as a rookie.
Yeah.
So there's good stuff in there. I think that he's a little too lackadaisical. I don't think he's worked as hard as he needs to. You're right. He is small. Is
he hurt?
Well,
or did he have an injury last year that he didn't tell us about or something?
He's had a series of nagging injuries. He's had a couple surgeries. And if you want to give him the benefit of the doubt, what you do is say, okay, maybe he hasn't been able to hit the weights as hard as he needs to. And maybe when you're facing these physical beasts every weekend, and you're not as strong as you need to be, it can really damage your psyche.
Well, Jared Allen looks like me, so and I'm really skinny for those that can't see me.
But the difference there, though, is it's typical for linemen to shed pounds late in their career to try to regain quickness.
Oh, sure.
Which is what you saw. And Jared Allen was never a monster.
No,
he was a
around
technician.
The edge. Yeah.
He was always he was like a wrestler. He knew how to leverage you, but he was never a monster.
But he does look smaller, am I wrong?
He is smaller.
I mean, and that's because he had pneumonia or whatever,
Correct.
right?
Well,
they say that.
My guess is he's smaller. He would have been smaller anyway because all linemen at a certain point in their career do the Allen page and try to strip down weight. But Khalil was good. So you have to believe that if he's on the right workout program, if he's properly motivated, maybe if he does the right steroids, because they all do, all NFL linemen do some kind of performance-enhancing drugs, that he can get back to it. Because there's something good in there. There is. That's what's so infuriating about it. He isn't just a bust. He's a guy who was really good just 2 years ago.
The bush here is that of Jim Souhan. Again, I'll remind folks that he is now a member of the Alive and Social Network. I mean, there's a lot of programs, a lot of really good stuff coming up on the Alive and Social Network. Every Wednesday, there's a music showcase from Shamrocks. That includes the Last Drive Band. They do a little live karaoke on Friday nights at O'Gara. Live band karaoke with
make sure you say that live band
karaoke,
which is really cool. And it was actually I saw the videos online. I wasn't able to make it. I was working, but it looks really cool.
It's a great idea. I mean, if you're the kind of person who likes to get up and sing in front of a crowd, how cool would it be to stand up in front of band? I mean, seriously. I mean, Jim is a musician.
I'm
plays
basically
guitar.
a live band karaoke guy. That's what I am.
But I mean, you've got the pubcast, which is coming up Wednesday and Thursday, correct?
Yep. Wednesday at Burger Mo's and Thursday at O'Gara's.
Thursday at O'Gara's. We got
Rusty
Gatenby review, which gives you a chance both with the video podcast and the audio podcast. The video podcast is on YouTube, correct? Gives you a chance to see just how bulbous the head actually is, and it is enormous.
Does it fit in the frame?
And when you typically say somebody has a big head, you mean it figuratively, that he's got an ego. With Rusty, I mean it literally, physically is a giant head. It's almost as big as Bryant McKinney's, and Bryant McKinney had the biggest human head I've ever seen.
It really would save you time working out, though. You know, all you do is you basically stand up. You're doing a squat.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You really are. It's unbelievable. Have you ever seen anybody who is more physically disproportionate from normal humans than Bryant McKinney? I mean, everything on Bryant McKinney was like ridiculously. I mean, his fingers. He could kill you with a finger. His head had to be a size 10.
The hair.
Just crazy.
And that was without working out, because he didn't really like working out.
Oh, he's just what a lazy. I mean, to talk about somebody who could have been great if he had any work ethic.
He could have been one of the greats of all
seriously,
time.
if he would have cared at all. I mean, I remember when he was starting his senior year. I mean, he was on the cover of Sports Illustrated as a potential #1 overall pick. I mean, just I guess we have a way of finding left tackles who just don't want to work. I mean, it's our thing.
It's a rare skill.
But I will say this: we've talked about Spielman's ability to maneuver on draft day and accumulate picks and get the most value out of what he has. What he's done the last 2 years is, I think it's unprecedented. I mean, the Vikings. Well, it is. The Vikings have had more first-round picks in the last 2 years than anybody in the history of the league in a 2-year stretch. So I mean, it is unprecedented. Now the real key is being able to hit on him. But this year he hit on him. I mean, Barr, McKinnon, Bridgewater. I'm a big believer in Bridgewater.
I am too.
He's really hit on these this time.
He absolutely did. And the McKinnon pick is really.
That takes some insight.
That took some insight. Now you could also go back and say, hey, you could have had Sproles for a 6th-round pick, and then you could use your 3rd-round pick on an offensive lineman.
He looked pretty damn good last
something
night.
else. But McKinnon's a nice player, and a nice player from a small college whose skills translate almost immediately to the NFL. That speaks well of Spielman. I think the Barr thing really speaks well of the Spielman-Zimmer collaboration. Here's a kid who was a running back in high school, was a running back when he got to UCLA, plays 1 year at linebacker, looks lost at times. I mean, you could tell he had great athletic ability, but he didn't have an incredible season. He looked lost at times, and they looked at him and said, we're not going to take who we're supposed to take. We're not going to take somebody we consider safe. We're going to take somebody we think, and maybe only we think, is worth the 9th pick in the draft. And, man, did they nail it. This kid is phenomenal.
Well, you can't coach athletic ability. I mean, you can't.
But you know what? I disagree. I disagree with the phrasing of that cliche.
Well, you know what I mean.
Because this guy has been coached in a way that has made him effective right away. And certainly he gets a lot of the credit.
Right.
He's very intelligent. He's incredibly athletic. But there are a lot of good athletes in the NFL who run the wrong direction.
Correct. That's correct. I tell you what, if you went back and how many years until this year had the Vikings incorporated a Tampa 2, a cover 2? I mean, it's the most passive come and get us. We're going to lie down for you defense in the history of the National Football League. And it became nauseatingly difficult to watch, and it also became extraordinarily outdated. And as much as I dislike Chris Carter as a human being, he did a really good bit last year on NFL Game Day talking about how antiquated the defense had become and how you can attack it. It's so refreshing to see. I mean, with Zimmer, I mean, you will see from time to time 6, 7, 8 guys not in the box on the line of scrimmage, and you got who's coming, who's not, and it's always different. It's an assortment of linebackers, and coming and I mean, you got some zone blitz, you get some linemen dropping back, which is always that's a little dicey when you get a nose tackle floating back into pass coverage, but nonetheless, I mean, you get a player like Sharif Floyd, I believe in the Tampa game, in the zone blitz, floated back, read a screen, and made a shoestring tackle to save a first down. I mean, it's just you've got some different looks, and you've got guys who managed to excel in these looks.
Well, I will offer this caveat about the Tampa 2.
Yeah.
The Tampa 2 last year, Carolina basically ran the Tampa 2, and they were one of the best defensive teams in the league, and they crushed the Vikings with it. I think the Tampa 2 is outdated because in the constant evolution of the NFL, people had so much time to work up antidotes to it, to work up counters to it, that they did. They exposed all of its flaws.
You got really good safeties. I mean, really good.
Well, and even more important, here's the thing. To run the Tampa 2 these days, because what have we seen really grow in the game the last 10 years or so? The tight end who get down the field.
Yeah.
There have never been this many tight ends. People used to think of Anthony Fasano as just a perfect tight end. He blocks, catch a 5-yard pass. Now he's the guy who's getting phased out.
Yeah, now it's Jimmy Graham.
Now it's everybody. Every team has a tight end who can beat you down the middle, and that's what's killed the Tampa 2. Now, so these days, if you want to run the Tampa 2, and I still think you can.
You got to get an athletic middle linebacker.
You have to have a great middle linebacker.
Yeah,
Kuechly is the reason the Panthers could do it last year. Derek Brooks was the reason it worked in Tampa. Brian Urlacher was the reason it worked in Chicago.
Is that why they moved Matthews inside? And by the way, get a room, Chris Collinsworth. Collinsworth and Clay Matthews on Sunday night.
You know what, though?
Get a room.
Collinsworth is absolutely right.
I love Collinsworth, but God.
He's absolutely right.
Oh, they flogged that horse to death.
But it was a blowout. They had to talk about something.
That's true. Well, you know what? Don't talk about Ted Thompson building a roster, 'cause that's a bunch of shit.
I give them a lot of credit, though. To take a star, I agree with Collinsworth 100%. Take a star guy who defines himself by sacks, and put him in a position where he might not get the sacks, and to see him dominate from sideline to sideline,
he did play
the way
well.
he did. He was phenomenal.
Yeah, I'll tell you this though.
And you know what? And here's the best thing to me about that move, because I think Seifert, or one of my buddies, tweeted out something like, well, you can't do it. You can't full time take a pass rusher and put him in the middle. It's not. But what if the other team never knows where you're going to play him? What if you can move him around? That's an incredible advantage.
Sure, it is. Is it a condemnation of A.J. Hawk?
Oh, A.J. Hawk's no good. He's no good.
That'd be a condemnation.
He is not a good player. I'm serious. He's not a good player at all. He is what the modern statistician would call a replacement level player. Okay. He is just a body. He does not make any plays that anybody else would not make.
How off the tracks is it right now for Mark Trestman? I mean, he's dead. He's dead in the water, isn't he? I mean,
he's dead.
That team is quit.
And here's the thing. I still will defend the Bears hiring him.
Really?
Yes. Because
I think he's a weenie. And weenies don't succeed.
I don't think he's a weenie. I think he's soft. I don't think he's a weenie.
Well, what's the difference? No, you're really splitting hairs.
No, because you can be a good guy and just be a little soft for that job.
Yeah.
A weenie makes you sound like you're a bad human being.
Oh, well, okay, I guess you and I have different definitions of weenie.
So I will say soft.
It's character's weenie.
Well, it all depends on whose weenie is being gored. But anyway.
You're so good with saying.
So thank you very much.
Here's the thing. They hire him because the whole franchise is wrapped up in Jay Cutler, Jay Cutler's contract length, Jay Cutler's contract value.
Offensive guru.
They have no way to win without Jay Cutler succeeding. Mm-hmm. They have built an offense around him. Pass-catching running back, 2 big wide receivers.
Right.
It's all about Jay Cutler. They hired a guy they thought would be the best fit with Jay Cutler. And I will say it's more a combination of Jay Cutler than Mark Trestman that doesn't work. Here's Jay Cutler. You give him 2 pass catchers who will catch anything within a 5-yard radius. You give him a good pass-catching tight end. You beef up the offensive line. You give him the best pass-catching running back and maybe the best 2-way running back in the NFL in Matt Forte. Mm-hmm. You give him everything and an offensive-minded coach who's known for innovative game plans, and Cutler won't even play for him. To me, it's Jay Cutler more than anybody.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I've always felt that the makeup of a great, genius offensive coordinator and the makeup of a great head coach are two totally different things.
I agree.
There can be there can be some overlap, but the brainy, intellectual, X and O, scheming to death guy doesn't always, as a matter of fact, infrequently makes a great head coach. I mean,
but Bill Walsh and Joe Gibbs were that guy, and they're two of the 5 best ever.
That's true. But they also were.
Those were more leaders,
but
though,
right?
But
they were also 15, 20 years ago.
But what I'm saying is, I think we all get hung up too much on types. Oh, we got to hire a defensive guy, or have to fire an offensive guy.
I just think you need to get a guy who's somebody who the players didn't pants in high school. I mean, I think the Vikings sat in the room looking at Brad Childress thinking, didn't I pants this guy in high school? I'm not going to play football for this clown.
And
that's why Percy Harvin threw a dumbbell at him.
And yet,
plus he's a gangster.
But Percy Harvin also got mad at Leslie Frazier, who played in the Super Bowl as a starting cornerback, and everybody loves.
Yeah, that's true.
I think there are all kinds of different guys who can succeed with the right organizational support.
Not a weenie.
If you're going to bring Tressman in, then you better have somebody on his staff who can kind of be bad cop.
Yes.
And I don't think they have that.
Yeah. Well, who's this defensive coordinator?
I'm blanking on it right now.
I am too.
I have to look it up.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I apologize.
Well,
we'll go back and edit that out.
Yeah. No, it's okay. It's okay. I can admit that I don't know.
I don't know numerous names in the National Football League right now. But when I think of the makeup of a good head coach, and again, I know that you don't want to pigeonhole too much, but I need a guy who's kind of a man's man, a Jack Del Rio type, a Mike Tice type. I think Mike Tice has got the makeup of a head coach.
I don't know that Bill Walsh was definitely that guy.
But that was 20 years ago.
Do you really think there's that big a difference in football these days?
Oh, the Divas is a little different now. The money, doesn't that make it a little different?
But that would indicate that you have to have somebody who can kind of tolerate some stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, what are we learning about last year's Seattle Seahawks, who looked from the outside like the happiest team who ever put together?
Yeah.
All they talked about, and I know, I talked to Bevel about this myself. I covered the Super Bowl, so I talked to Seahawks people all week. I talked to Seahawks media all week. All they ever talked about was how Pete Carroll had these guys loving their job so much that come in on their off days to hang out with each other at the facility. Now what are we finding out? Marshawn Lynch is a complete headache. Percy Harvin was a bad guy all last year, punched a guy Super Bowl week, punched a key player Super Bowl week. I mean, they had all kinds of problems too. And what did Pete Carroll do? Pete Carroll didn't play the tough guy. You're off the team. Pete Carroll said, well, I'm going to pretend this didn't happen, and then sometime in the future when it's convenient, I'll get rid of these guys.
Yeah, I tell you what, to find out, there are a lot of people enjoying. I told you so's. I'm Percy Harvin right now. I mean, for the Vikings to get the haul that they got for him.
And let's go back to the Spielman conversation. I give Spielman tons of credit for trading Harvin when he did.
Yeah,
because Harvin is incredibly brilliant as a player. And to trade him when he did for what he did, that's another home run for Spielman.
Yeah, it absolutely is. By the way, how's the beer that?
Very nice.
They brought you the Devil's Advocate.
Got some nice hops to it. It's got some unfiltered.
What do you drink? You got drinking the same thing?
Same thing.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Like
it's IPA, I believe, or a pale ale. It's very good.
I'm having a Diet Cola. It's fantastic.
Is it hoppy?
It's very sweet.
Malty.
It's got a nice finish. It's got a lovely bouquet. But anyway, I digress. The Gophers beat Iowa so soundly. The Big Ten is, well, we know the Big Ten's a no count, and Ohio State, showed that by what they did to Michigan State. I didn't think the Gophers had this kind of a blowout against Iowa in them. We don't want to put Iowa on any kind of pedestal as a team that lost to Maryland. I didn't see this coming, considering that the Gophers were really outclassed by this team at home a year ago. I thought they could win this game. I didn't think they would kill them. I was convinced that after the Illinois game, they were on their way to 6-6, maybe 7-5. I mean, obviously now they've got their 7th win. Can they get an 8th? I mean, they can't this week.
Well, I mean, I don't think they can, but I wouldn't bet $1 against them or for them in any of these games. I mean,
it's pretty unpredictable right now.
Yeah, it is, and I also think that we overrate blowouts. I think beating Iowa is a big deal. Where they were coming off the Illinois loss,
I do
trying
too.
to save. It was basically a save the season kind of game.
Yeah.
I think beating Iowa was a big deal. Beating them up, that just means that you got them down. You're a good running team. You got them down. You ran them over. You kind of humiliated them. They just wanted to get on their
Yeah,
butts.
they rolled.
And they're college kids, so they quit easier, don't they, too?
I really don't. I don't put that much stock in blowouts. Victories matter. Blowouts don't.
Looking good off a bye week, I think, is a big feather in a coach's cap. I think that tells you somebody can coach.
And the other thing is, I just think that all sports fans in all sports overreact. All sports writers in all sports overreact.
That's true.
Because we're all in the moment. We're all working for a daily entity of some kind. But when they lost to Illinois, I said, yes, I agree, that's a terrible loss. no, I don't agree. That means they can't win 2 of the Final 4 games. It's college. It's the same series of events that led to them losing at Illinois could have them beating even a superior team down the stretch.
And I can't see them beating Ohio State. That's the one absolute, in my opinion. I don't think they can beat that team. Ohio State is the closest thing to a national elite in this league. They're winning by 28 points a game. And the transformation in this quarterback, JT Barrett, is that the name? The transformation from the Virginia Tech game to where we are now is it's outrageous. It tells you just how good these Ohio State coaches are coaching the kid up.
Well, I was just going to say that. Anybody who thinks a big-time Division I power program head coach who wins is overpaid is not embracing reality. Urban Meyer is earning every dollar of his contract. If you can take a program that makes that much money and you can lose your supposed Heisman candidate and then win big with the backup, he's earning every dollar.
Yeah, it's really phenomenal. It really is. It's really a shame for them that not only did they lose to Virginia Tech, but really a shame for them that Virginia Tech has gone in the tank.
It's really a shame for the Big Ten.
Yeah, because Ohio State right now really might be one of the best 4 or 5 teams in college football.
Does the playoff benefit them now?
Well, if they sneak in,
because they wouldn't be in that one game, right? With
well,
BCS?
It benefits them, but that's only if you accept that this is a system that should be limited to 4 teams. This should be 8 teams minimum.
Yeah,
should be 16 teams.
You think so?
Oh, God, yes.
Eventually it will be, though, right?
I don't know.
Yes.
It's leading to that.
Yes, because they will make an incredible amount of money off this 4-game playoff. And all these people who run universities who are supposed to be smart will go, oh, geez, maybe we'll make more if we have more games.
Well, they do have those 2 or 3 down weeks in December, that they could do something with.
Yeah, I'm sure that every college fan would not want their team to be in a playoff December 14th. That would be really inconvenient for them to have to travel someplace to watch their team play a NCAA playoff game against another power.
When you watch college, I love college football. I think it's just from week in, week out, the games mean so much. Even with the playoff, they mean so much. You try to kind of look at the whole national picture and who's doing what. Florida State's going to go undefeated and be in this thing. They might be the luckiest team of the national. And I love watching Jameis Winston, and I'm a big Jimbo Fisher fan. But this team absolutely, now granted without Winston, but they got their tails kicked by Clemson. It wasn't even they got beat up, and a Dabo Swinney team will find a million different ways to kill itself, and it did that night as well. But losing to a god awful backup quarterback, and then I was here at Devil's Advocate the night they played Notre Dame, and I look up, I see the Notre Dame game-winning touchdown, and I got to wake up the echoes going off in my head, and I turn around and all of a sudden I see Jimbo Fisher and Jameis Winston hugging. I'm like, what the hell just happened? I felt like I dropped into a parallel universe. But the bottom line is, whether you like the call or not, Florida State's gotten breaks.
Oh, no question. And really, Winston being great has saved them. He's pulled off victories. Notre Dame was the better team that night, and Winston won that game for him. But that's, to me, again, going back to it, that's why you have to broaden the playoff field, because going from 2 to 4 teams doesn't solve anything. Mm-hmm. It really makes you wonder how good the 5th and 6th teams are. Now you start getting to 8 or 16, and you can legitimately say, okay, we are not leaving the best team in the country out of the playoffs.
Yeah.
But the way 4-team playoff works, somebody could have a bad loss, or they could have 2 really close losses to really good teams, be eliminated from the 4-team tournament, and by the time that 4-team tournament comes around, they might still be the best team in the country.
Year in, year out, Alabama, LSU is a good watch at the end, but a god-awful watch for the first 3 hours.
It's awful.
It's hard to
really
watch.
Bad football.
Those aren't great quarterbacks.
They don't have great quarterbacks, and they have phenomenal defensive talent that all those guys cover so much ground. It's hard to operate. So, I guess if you're an old-school guy, you say that's the way football should be played. I kind of like the completed pass myself.
Well, at least they had good finishes. The kid for Alabama rallied the squad, but I thought they were dead in the water. I didn't think he had that in him. He's more of an athletic guy. He's not a polished passer.
He overcame Lane Kiffin.
Yeah, I tell you what, Lane Kiffin is not a bad offensive mind. He's just an ass and a bad leader.
Yeah, he's not a bad offensive coordinator. I still wouldn't want him around.
Well, are they really grooming him to be Saban's successor? Is that the general thought?
I can't believe that.
I know.
I can't believe that. He's never succeeded anywhere.
I know.
How do you get the best job in football if you haven't succeeded anywhere?
Yeah, it is bizarre.
I really don't believe it.
That's the Jeff Dubay Show. Jim Souhan is the guest. Jim Souhan, the latest addition to the Live and Social Network. He'll be doing his own show. We'll get his schedule to it as soon as it's hammered out. I think he and I also will be doing a show together.
Yeah, follow both of us on Twitter so we can keep you updated.
Absolutely. Perfect way to do it. Also Facebook. And
aliveandsocial.com.
Yep.
Perfect. And we'll be back to wrap it up after this. You know, folks who've listened to the show, they know that I lived in the Uptown area here, right down Pleasant Avenue, as a matter of fact, and on the corner of Pleasant Lake is where Uptown Pond is. And I have been here numerous times, had numerous business dealings with them. It's just a nice place with good, honest people. Bob Jacobson, the owner, you run the place. You've always been good to me.
Thanks, Jeff. We try. That's part of our business. We're here to help people, and so everybody walks in the door. We hope we can help.
Well, what I've always appreciated is when people are nice to people who are the low man on the totem pole. Like when I was a bat boy, I liked the star guys who were nice to the bat boy.
Right.
And I mean, I came in here and you guys didn't know who I was. You didn't know I had a radio show, and you treated me great. I mean, just a guy off the street.
Listen, that's the idea with I think a smaller family type business. Somebody walks in the door, we don't want to let them see everybody gets treated the same way, and we hope that's the case. And we don't want to see them leave without. We try our very best.
It's really easy. It's easy. It's low pressure. Good, honest people. Right on the corner of Lake Street and Pleasant Avenue. You guys got to check out Uptown Pond. Check them out. Help support the show by supporting our advertisers. We're into the final 10 minutes here with Jim Souhan. We're going to get back into Adrian Peterson here in just a second. Have you been watching much hoops? You've been watching
I've been watching the Wolves, and I'm interested in the Gopher team, but I haven't really seen much of them yet.
Yeah, I mean, is it? I'm not an NBA guy, and I'm not beating a path to the front of the television set to watch this version of the Timberwolves. But I mean, what level of promise is there once Rubio is? I'm not even a huge Rubio guy, but if he's healthy and if he learns to shoot from 15 feet, what is the level of promise here? Are people overblowing it, or is it there?
Here's what I'll give him credit for. I think that Flip has brought an incredible amount of enthusiasm to the job. I give him a lot of credit. He's gotten me excited, and I didn't think I'd be excited about this team at all. And I like the fact that they're just committing to the kids. I think Wiggins is going to get better right before our eyes. Anthony Bennett is already better than I thought he'd be. And Rubio, I don't think Flip liked Rubio that much. I don't think Flip went into the season thinking, I'm going to sign him to an extension. I think Rubio showed Flip that he can be a leader, that he can be very effective. I mean, if you look at the difference between the Wolves statistics between when Rubio's on the floor and when he's not, they're dramatically different. They shoot about 8% higher field goal percentage when he's on the floor. He really can play. He needs to get better as a shooter. We all know that. But there's a lot of good stuff there. And while I don't think he's necessarily technically worth the contract they gave him to, when you're the Wolves, you just can't afford to lose another good player. You can't. You've lost too many with getting nothing back. So, listen, I don't know how many games they're going to win, especially now that Rubio's gotten hurt. Maybe it's 30. Maybe, the people I know who know the Wolves very well like to say 35. I think that might be a little optimistic. But there's at least a purpose here. And the purpose isn't to try to keep Kevin Love around when Kevin Love has no interest in staying here. There's actually, you're going to see young players get better over the course of the next couple of years. And who knows how that ends up. But I do like their style of play. They play really hard. They play together.
And what a no-brainer to keep Glenn Robinson over Barea. Thank God. Thank God they got that right.
Yeah, and you know what? They might pay for it in terms of wins right now because Barea would be playing instead of Rubio, with Rubio out. But that's okay. I'm absolutely buying into Flip's vision on building this slowly for the future.
And before we wrap things up with some Peterson talk, just how hilarious is it that Kevin Love's already talking about not wanting
to. Awesome.
He wants to opt out of
Cleveland.
It's awesome. It's just stuck at Cleveland.
God, I hate
It's
it.
funny. A buddy of mine named Tim Kawakami covered the Lakers for a long time. Now he's a Bay Area sports columnist. And he always told me that there is such a thing as an L.A. person. And he said Kevin Love's an L.A. person. He will always want to go back to L.A.
He would have never gone to Cleveland, obviously, if it wasn't for LeBron. But what a town for a guy like that. Like, you went from Minneapolis to Cleveland.
I know.
You're really just moving on up, buddy.
Which isn't a bad town either.
No,
it's not what he wants. Not what he wants.
New York. It's not in LA.
Correct.
It's not the
Correct.
flashy, all that.
Correct.
All right. So on the AP thing, Jim, I just want to get your opinion on this. You think that Goodell's going to kind of come down hard on him, be the
if
chief,
he's allowed
be the
to.
yes. I want to get to this. He's the PR guy for the league. I mean, he's in charge of. He's supposed to make the image good, and he's supposed to help the owners. Does this help the owners if you really come down on Adrian Peterson when you know next year somebody's going to do something worse, and it could be another star? And are you handcuffing yourself? If you suspend Adrian Peterson for a season for what we, I think we kind of debate the severity of what he did, but what he did was not kill anyone. He did not bash a woman in the face and try to cover it up. He did not do as bad as Ray Rice. Does this handcuff Goodell if he does go really hard on him with the next guy down the road?
Yes. And that's why I think this is the grand test of whether Goodell really wants to be the authoritative figure he's tried to be. Because if he wants to be that guy that he told us he was, he comes down hard on Peterson here, and he uses that as a precedent every time somebody screws up. I think he also realizes that, the NFL doesn't really care about the fan and the viewer it already has. It cares about the next fan and viewer because it wants world domination. And I think what the signal Goodell has gotten during the Rice and Peterson things is, if you want to the only way you can turn away women and children from your product is to broadcast the message you don't care about the health of women and children. So I think Goodell is looking at this as an entire demographic he needs to not offend.
See, and I think he needs to worry about his image, but I think you also need to worry about suspending star players, and no owner wants their star player out. And so I think that's actually where he gets the pushback is from the owners in that, because, again, you're setting a precedent.
Right, and listen, that's why I don't think he's going to, I don't think he's going to come back and say, Adrian Peterson, you're suspended for the next 6 weeks. I think he'll either retroactively fine him or suspend him for 2 games and say that suspension we view it as an addition to him missing the other games. I think he'll try to find a way to split the baby, frankly.
Perfect. King Solomon reference on my show for the first time ever. We're cutting new ground as we speak, breaking new ground. Speaking of breaking new ground, the Jim Souhan, what's going to be called?
Do you have a title?
The working title is Souhan Unfiltered, but
a Belgian white. Are you a Belgian white?
I do like Belgian whites.
All right.
But I will try to see if we can come up with something better.
Okay. Well, tell us what the show's. Give us an overview. What do you think it's going to be?
I have no idea. Well, listen, there are certain people I hope will come on as guests with me. Some people who have some cachet around here.
Oh, you've got some connections.
But I also want it to be sometimes just like this.
Stream of consciousness?
Just 2 guys just talking.
Bullshit.
So I don't know. I kind of want it to be a mixture of things. I also want to bring in some of my friends from the music industry. Maybe have my guys from the Jayhawks come on. Because nobody loves sports more than musicians.
Absolutely.
Every musician wants to be a sports star.
Yeah.
Every sports star wants to be a musical star.
That's true.
So I hope we bring in some big names. I hope we also have just some good conversations with normal people.
Yeah. Well, what the hell is our show going to be about when you and I do a show together?
You're going to talk, and I'm going to drink beer.
Perfect. God, that's perfect. Because I'm good at that, and you're good at that.
Yeah.
Well,
we got to play to our strengths.
Yeah, we do. Well, I'm good at talking. I'm not good at making sense. You've got 2 shows coming up.
I do.
Jason.
The Pubcast, and speaking of creative names, we really went all out with the Minnesota Pubcast.
That's a pubecast.
He always goes with
as someone who gets really sick of people trying to write cute headlines that don't work, I like the self-descriptive headline.
Well, that's just it. It says what it is.
Yeah.
We're in a pub. We're talking.
That's true.
That's what it is. It's the Pubcast.
This is the Jeff Dubay show.
That's
the Dave
you have a
Matthews
little
Band.
more.
The
Your
bosses
name
want
has a
you to
little
change
more
that name
weight.
to like the Jim Rome show or something.
Well, don't get me started on
Good
Jim
luck with
Rome.
that.
It was a joke. It was a joke.
I don't know how people listen to Jim Rome. I really don't.
I don't either.
To be honest with you.
I just listen for the pauses.
It's unbelievable. It's the most forced delivery. He's just a fraudulent person.
You know what?
He's like a pretend person. I don't know how to explain.
He's a character. Yeah.
That's a good take.
That's the first time I ever heard Caliendo.
That was awesome.
Was when he was on a call-in show late at night with a buddy of his. I forget which guy he's buddies with, but he's doing Rome on the phone, and I thought it was really Jim Rome. It just blew my mind.
He's the best. Caliendo is the. How about the Caliendo where he did Gruden while working with Gruden?
That was awesome.
That was the
awesome.
best ever.
His Morgan Freeman freaks me out still. He could call people's moms and fake them out. There's no doubt in my mind.
He should do ebooks as Morgan Freeman.
Oh God, that'd be awesome.
Just more free money for him.
I hear people do voices. I wish I had that talent. I don't know how they do
it. Every impersonation I do sounds either like Bernsey or Sid.
I've never been able to
I could be trying to do somebody from like West Senegal, and it'll sound like Bernsey or Sid.
Give me Bernsey doing Sid.
Oh, Bernsey doing Sid like, hey, get off Snooker's best, genius.
That's very good. It's very solid. I regret that little Diet Coke came up the nose there for a second.
was
Good thing,
almost a mess.
good thing I'd let it get flatter. It would have burned a little bit. That's going to wrap it up for a Jeff Dubay show. Go ahead and hit the closing bump there.
Gotcha.
This is my favorite bump. Love this bump.
It's a great bump.
Yeah, it is. You're more than welcome to use it on the Jim Souhan Experience.
I'll try to come. I might use some Black Crows or something. Or some Springsteen.
I'm a Black Crowes guy too. Remedy would be a fantastic
It would be.
bumper. Fantastic bumper. But thanks to Jason McGovern. Thanks to Tony Anderson. Thanks to the entire live and social network of the good folks right here at Devil's Advocate, Minnesota. Tomorrow we'll be at Burger Moe's. It's a Wild Wednesday. I got no second for that.
You're not pissed at anybody today?
I'm done. We're down. We're out. Done. No second.